No Politic Here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of No Politic Here, and I'm with my co-host, who is always here, so you shouldn't be surprised to see his beautiful face, but you should be pleasantly surprised to see the beautiful face of Lily Eagla, right?
Yes, good job.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. How are you, Lily?
I'm so good. How are you both during this beautiful time to be alive?
Can't complain.
Yeah, I'm good. You know, it's definitely one of the best times to not be lonely. There's always new AI chatbots to make friends with. You know, chat to Grok every other day, talk to Claude when I'm bored. You know, that kind of stuff.
That's the time that you're on all the time, Chris.
yeah. That's how. But yeah, it's definitely a great time to be alive. You know, I like AI data centers. I like the world getting hotter. So nothing to complain about. And most of all, I love horrendous foreign policy that it seems no matter what time we were alive in the last 100 years, we would have got the exact same thing.
Yes. And you're meeting your diversity quota once again this week.
Yes.
Right. I'm not vetoing it. I'm not vetoing it. Yeah. Usually I would, but...
Well, Isaac did call me out because maybe I was so problematic that I'd forgotten that we'd ever had a woman on before.
Yes.
Two.
Which is kind of ridiculous. Yes, I do sincerely apologize, Isaac, for that one. But Lily, do you want to kind of introduce yourself, what you do, what you do and such?
Hello, everyone. I'm Lily Eagla. I make agitative propaganda on Instagram, mainly Instagram. Yeah, I stick to Instagram pretty exclusively. And eventually I'll do long form content when I become as cool as Isaac and Chris. One day.
Well, if you ever need help when that time comes, let us know.
I've developed I've become a massive fan of someone who makes agitative content recently. Have you seen the guy who makes videos about like how rich people want you to hate billionaires? And he like plays videos of Billie Eilish being like, why are there billionaires? And he makes other videos about how Marx had loads of children that were illegitimate and he got kicked out of every country and didn't pay his rent. And so the Communist Manifesto is some kind of evil trick on everyone. And I'm really into his videos at the moment.
I have yet to see him, but you take in a lot of propaganda from the right? Like, because you often react to that kind of stuff. I'm luckily in an echo chamber of my own creation, so I'm not exposed to that kind of stuff very often, but it sounds cute.
What, do you have quite a curated reels then?
Yes, very creative, curated. I don't have to see very much of the other side, except when I get videos of like Itamar Ben-Gvir, like you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah. So you don't get any right-wing like videos, right-wing propaganda, racist reels? I get a lot of those. I don't know why.
Well, it's
based on what you're looking at, Isaac.
I always get some weird shit, but
okay, tell me the weirdest one that you've had recently.
I get a lot of like. You know what I'll get? I'll get a lot of videos of Fuentes reading his own chat and getting mad at his, like, I guess, maladjusted fans. I'll get those. And, like, they are kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. Like, he'll just get, like, the most out-of-touch, maladjusted, white supremacist bullshit.
Yeah,
and he'll
hates his fans.
And he's, like, disgusted. He's like, what have I created? What have I done?
I do love clavicular clips. I can't. I will say, like, I love watching clavicular.
Yeah, that's the type of shit that I'll get.
He's kind of fallen off a bit, though, no?
Yeah, the whole like overdosing thing, several times in public, and it's not the vibe. But he's actually becoming his own kind of Charlie Kirk. He does university tours now, I think. Like he goes to universities and they have him as a guest.
What does he do? Does he debate people?
Oh, well, of course. He gives advice on look, smack, sing and how to level up and be Gorgina. He's gone on the news, too, here in the U.S. Have you seen him on the news here?
No.
Or he's on the news with an Australian guy as well. He got mogged by him, and he's like, "Do you really think that you would be?" He's like, "Do you really think you would be a news reporter if you were fat and bald?" And the Australian journalist was like, "I think I would. I think it'd be fun."
Dude, doesn't CNN have one of those? I feel like CNN has like a little bald short guy with the hair.
Probably CNN hires anybody. They don't care.
See, I would say there is probably something real he speaks to of like pretty privilege. I remember one of my lecturers shared an essay I never read because it was in 2019 and I don't think I've ever found it. I think it was called something like vaguely The Politics of Ugliness. And I remember beginning reading it and it kind of just made mention of how this does matter. And, you kind of look at some of the biggest streamers, the biggest content creators, especially on places like Instagram. I think definitely being attractive plays a part.
True. Asmongold, that's how he got his career, man. Asmongold would be nothing if it wasn't for his dashing looks.
And Destiny. Gorgeous.
And Destiny. Dude, these are beautiful specimens. This is a little bit of a detraction, but I feel like Chris, I haven't got to talk to Chris, and I feel like he would be very surprised with what I'm about to say. But I watched 2 movies over the past weekend. Obsession, and Swapped, the animation. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about right now.
But I know what Obsession is. I've heard it's quite good.
Yeah, it was like fantastic. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I don't want to give any spoilers away. I don't know if you've heard about it, Lily.
I've heard Obsession. Keep talking about it. I'm curious.
It's basically about this guy who's like very insecure. He's like your typical nice guy archetype, nice guy in quotations archetype. And he has like this kind of obsession or infatuation with this girl that he's got a crush on. And he has like this fucking little device. It's like he got it at a crystal shop that can cast a wish. And he basically wishes that the girl loves him more than anyone in the world. Like so this weird, frantic kind of, thing. And what ends up happening is like some sort of entity possesses her and makes her love him, but she's not actually the one doing it. And there's times where she breaks through this and she's like, no, it's not me. And he's still doing it. So there's obviously like a huge consent issue there. But the reason I'm bringing this up, because to tie this back with all of the right-wing propaganda and how it kind of alters with the way people kind of interact with media, is there is like this phenomenon of men who are watching this show, this movie, and thinking that she's the bad guy because she gets crazy and obsessed. When it's like, dude, the whole point of the movie is this guy made a frantic wish that disrespected her sovereignty and bodily autonomy.
Boom. Okay, woke.
That's what I was thinking.
We're trying to... Well, this episode passes the Bechdel test because we actually have Lily on, so might as well stay in that realm.
But isn't part of the Bechdel test that women have to talk about
it's a thing 2 women.
I don't know what the Bechdel test is. I don't know what it is, brother.
Woke. Fake woker over here.
Isn't it something to do with like not talking about men as well? That the women have to be having conversations that aren't about men. And so far we've only spoken about clavicular, so...
and you guys are both men and I'm talking to you. Yeah, the Bechdel test is a screen test. It's 2 women in a movie or TV show that are having a conversation that does not have to do with men or mention of men. I think it might also include sexuality, but it might just be men.
That's all it is?
And most movies do not pass the Bechdel test. And didn't when it became a thing in like the mid-20th century, maybe the end of the 20th century. It is a low bar.
Are you into films at all, Lily?
I love movies. I'm a total cinephile. I was an actor for several years in LA before I moved to Chicago. Yeah, I love movies more than anything. I just watched a movie that I think you both would love called The Act of Killing. And
the Indonesian genocide?
Yeah, about the Jakarta massacre. I don't know if either of you have seen it, but it's been on my mind this entire past week. And I watch a few movies like pretty much every single week and have for most of like my adulthood. And they don't usually stick with me. Like even if it's really good, I'm not like pondering on it. But this one really stuck with me because it's like truly, evil. It's these people that are being followed around that were death squad leaders that talk about the ways that they killed communists. And Chris, are you a communist too?
Yeah, I mean, so what I say vis-a-vis this is because I've read the Communist Manifesto and I've read a decent amount of Marxists, but I would always say like I wouldn't profess communism only in the sense that I'm like totally against capitalism, but not clued up enough to give a full account of communism.
Oh, I got you. So it's 3 leftists then. How about that? When you're like watching a film talking about the massacring of leftists, I think there's a natural reaction to like feel an affinity to these people that you're hearing about being tortured and slaughtered. But the kind of conclusion that I came to that really stuck with me was watching these people that had massacred these leftists. I was like, unfortunately, I'm also as equally connected to these people as I am to the communists that they slaughtered. And it kind of just reminded me about how naturally human evilness is. And it got me really good,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm always obsessed with, even the word evil, I'm not so sure that we really should refer to, like, I've made a couple of videos about this. When Israel was bombing hospitals, and people are like, this is evil, this is demonic. Well, of course, like, those are descriptive words. But Israel's not doing those things because it's evil. It's doing those things because they're part of, like, a planned genocidal action.
Yes.
It is inherently a political thing.
Yes.
And I think that, I've spoken definitely about this across platforms where I kind of talk about how people sort of want to exoticize Israel and not see it as part of Western imperial power and be like, no, this is the uniquely evil bad thing. Yeah. And so I've heard good things. I've seen clips. I remember a few years ago, people were posting clips of the film, The Act of Killing, on Twitter, of just like people laughing about what they did. And it is crazy to watch. I mean, a crazy film that this kind of reminded me of, which almost no one will have seen because it's really hard to access for something. It's called There Will Be No More Night in French, which I think is Il n'y aura plus de nuit. And it's WikiLeaks footage put together with a monotone documentary voice in French. And she's talking about how we see and envision war and how cameras have advanced so much. But when you would think someone who's like a gunner in a like some kind of American plane or whatever would be able to tell what they're targeting. But a lot of it is based on how people start to behave when there's a drone flying above them. So they'll be like, okay, this guy's running weirdly, he's acting weirdly, let's kill him. And quite often it's just an innocent person. There's like it uses a really famous example. I think it's from Iraq, where a journalist is killed and they claim that he's holding an RPG and he's just holding a tripod. But through the thing they're looking through, you could make the argument, maybe it's an RPG. But the whole point is just, the whole argument of the film is they don't really know not to absolve them, but all of these cameras, all of this advanced equipment, which ostensibly makes them
should make it capable. Yeah, but they aren't.
Yeah, and they're just sort of mass killing people. And it ends
fascinating.
It ends with this chilling scene of one of the chopper pilots or one of the pilots doing training in America, and he goes and zooms in on his own family, and they just like wave at him whilst he's doing it. And, he's just been out killing people in Iraq, Afghanistan, and wherever, really. And it is crazy. I'm not the biggest documentary head, but I love that, and I'm sure The Act of Killing is fantastic as well.
It is, and it ends progressively, it follows these death squad leaders as they retell their accounts for the first time, really, and they meet people that were affected by what they did, and they talk to them, and they never suffer any actual consequences from the Indonesian government. They're protected. And the last scene is one of the death squad leaders in a spot where he had murdered a communist, describing the killing, and he's dry heaving throughout the entire last 3 minutes because he's so disgusted with himself and he's vomiting everywhere after what he had described. So you watch the progression of these people who come to understand they were in fact the bad guys. But doesn't really change anything, of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, to touch on the kind of a concept of evil, what that even constitutes, I guess, you just got to keep in mind that people act in correspondence with their material conditions. Yep. Israel does what it does because they derive perverse benefits from the subjugation and torture of Palestinians. So it's rational. Evil, when you say something is evil or it's whatever, that implies it's not rational. Mm-hmm. It's just a constant. It's not thought out. But this is very thought out. It's calculated. Mm-hmm. And I guess since we're on the topic, you guys want to talk about Itamar Ben-Gvir, all of that shit that's going on in the news?
Always.
Yeah. I guess, Chris,
Well, I mean, I to be honest, I don't know that much about it. I mean, it just seems to be this sort of, for people, I'm sure, actually, you know what? I don't even need to describe the video. It's literally just Itamar Ben-Gvir touring around people who were captured on the recent Samud flotilla that was arriving was attempting to reach Gaza. And it's just a video of Itamar Ben-Gvir filming himself, provoking them throwing a lady who chants Free Palestine to the ground, playing the Israeli national anthem. I mean, it's really repugnant. I don't know if you've both seen. It's actually caused quite a few diplomatic incidents as well. So the UK actually called the ambassador. But I mean, I don't know. If you what did you kind of make or think of it, Lily?
I saw the Spanish PM said that he wanted to put forth an order to ban the members of the Israeli government from entering the entire continent of Europe in reaction to that video, which I was like, okay, sure. Okay, maybe. I don't know. I don't believe any of them. I hope that they do something. We're almost 3 years into this part of the genocide. So my reaction to that video, I knew they were all going to be kidnapped. We all knew that, obviously. They knew that going into it. I mean, they know that every time that they try these missions, like, they are going to end up in Israeli prison. And you watch these people being bent over like Palestinian prisoners are every day and completely dehumanized, just like the prisoners in El Salvador. It's like the exact same methods. They're all doing the exact same thing. And you watch Itamar Ben-Gvir. And once again, like, we're talking, this is actually a good theme, like, about evil. Like, Itamar Ben-Gvir acts that way because he has power, and in a capitalistic apartheid state, like, he must act that way because he has to keep showing his power even as the Knesset is supposedly going to dissolve, right? Like, he just has to keep maintaining this image. So I think that the people that got kidnapped, I commend them largely because they're refocusing back onto the Palestinian prisoners. Because when people see how those international prisoners are being treated, that is not even a quarter of how Palestinian prisoners are treated every single day. It's nothing in comparison. And they are now, being shipped back to their home countries, God willing.
It's always so shocking how based Greta Thunberg is, really, because, you think about like other people who had considerable institutional respect at a young age and what they end up doing. And the fact that, because the reason I was thinking of her is because previously I remember when she was captured, the Israelis scrawled on her suitcase like misogynistic slurs. Apparently they kind of like physically abused her as well. And I remember she didn't talk about it for a while because she was literally like, yeah, it doesn't matter really. I'm safe. I'm fine. What really matters is the people who are, it's over 10,000 people being held in these torture dungeons that have, there's a really, I remember I picked this up from an Edward Said book. I think it's The Question of Palestine. He mentions how in 1977, and people can find this easily, the Sunday Times was the only newspaper who decided to pick up this story about torture of Palestinians. And there's always this story that stuck with me of like this guy who never was convicted of anything, and they took him to go and like point out where the weapons were hidden that didn't exist. And when he pointed somewhere that they weren't, they basically beat his head on a wall over and over again and then made him eat the paint chips off the floor. And when he left the Israeli prison and went to Jordan, he apparently sat up and was like waving his captors goodbye because he'd become so, like he'd suffered psychologically so much that he was at a point of somehow feeling like
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, even Stockholm syndrome doesn't exist, but I assume I don't know. I think when someone is that abusive, you can maybe find some kind of like you don't know how to exist without them if they literally control every facet of your life and have entire power over you. You don't know how to act, and so it's just that story always stuck with me. And there's other ones from the 80s about how almost all Palestinians were subjected to sexual abuse, and so as you're saying, it doesn't really shock me that this is going on. That this is how, that this is what Israelis kind of enjoy. Like it's on the news. This is regularly a film thing. Ben-Gvir has filmed himself tormenting Marwan Barghouti is in the one people love because they say he's like going to unite Palestine. But Ben-Gvir has filmed himself tormenting him. He's filmed himself. They like regularly have these prison shows where people just go in. Yeah,
brother, he lives in an illegal settlement in Hebron and nobody's done anything. The guy's in control of the fucking prisons. He's the defense, the police. Like, come the fuck on, dude. If anyone was going to do something about this piece of shit, they would have done it already. They just kind of
someone did try to
allow for it to go. When?
Someone got arrested. I think it was a Jewish person who tried to kill him. They had they'd plotted how they were going to do it, but it didn't go that far. But you're right.
No,
I mean, he lives.
No Politic Here does not endorse. Wait,
does not endorse.
Hold on, that was a Freudian slip there.
I love peace.
Peace is great. No war, just peace.
But my favorite thing is when people try and say it's kind of like how he's not representative of Israel when, as you said, he's the Minister of National Security, controls the police and the prison system.
Yeah.
But he's also increased in popularity since the main thing that people don't like about in Israel is that he's really corrupt. And also, we talked about this. Did you see his birthday party, Lily?
Oh, the nooses.
Yeah.
The noose cake, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the same thing in the United States and in every other, in Canada and in the UK, when you have right-wing people that come to power and become extremely popular, and they're like, this does not represent us. Like, this is an anomaly. No, this is like your country personified. This person is representative and is literally a human example of what your country is. Like Donald Trump, it's the exact same thing.
It won the popular vote.
Yeah,
quite literally is a manifestation of the popular will. Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? Like, this is that country. What?
I remember thinking that about Hegseth. I remember when I first made a video, I was kind of like, oh, America, what has America come to with like a drunk racist in charge?
My whole family. Like, hello?
He's the best representative of the American military,
Yes,
some
literally.
deranged guy who's like, Bush Jr. said, talked about a crusade. He retracted the statement, and he was actually sometimes like, oh no, it's not all Muslims. But, what is the global war on terror? What is it?
Hello?
It's a crusade of spreading Western democracy, liberal values or whatever. And Hegseth just takes it to its sort of...
natural conclusion.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Yeah.
Same with Ben-Gvir, It feels like a natural conclusion of, because so Ben-Gvir is from the Kahanist strain in Israel, which is just a far-right Israeli politics, a specific form of far-right Israeli politics. And when Kahana himself was alive in the 80s, the more radical he became, the more popular he became, until he was killed. And, I'm not really surprised that someone who follows in his footsteps at this point has managed to be so successful. It's like, one thing that is actually somewhat different about Israel, though, is, and I don't actually, I can't 100% say this, but I do believe in most European and Western countries, young people tend to be less right-wing, whereas in Israel, young people are more and more right-wing. And it's not just a post-October the 7th thing. They're really fucking right-wing.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Isaac?
Just everybody moving to the right. I mean, I don't know if I have empirical data to say what it looks like in Canada, which is where I'm from, but in Israel, I guess when your entire project is predicated on ethno-supremacy, that's going to seep out. And I think you need to propagate those beliefs, that right-wing kind of ethno-nationalism, in-group versus out-group thing, which is at the core of right-wing politics. I think you need to propagate that within your own country in order to keep the project going. Because again, it's an exclusionary project. So I don't know. It's very worrisome. I do think that there is a bit of a pushback against that, specifically in America. You can see people kind of sort of be receptive to left populism. And you could see that a lot with, like, say, a guy like Mamdani or whatever. With, he has his faults, which I'm no stranger to criticizing him.
Same.
But I think when it comes to, like, I think the issue is the futility of mainstream liberalism and liberal parties who offer really no change to the status quo. You don't really need to be that clued in or that much of a genius to know that shit's kind of fucked up. And you have Democrat parties, or in Canada, you have the Liberal Party, or you have Keir Starmer in the UK. And they don't actually offer...
socialist. This glorious leader.
Yeah, Queer Stalin, yeah. They don't actually offer anything. So they leave that power vacuum to the populist right. And they're the ones who are very good at capitalizing on that. When the left actually has policy prescriptions that are easier to get behind, right? Like bread and butter issues, like let's make things a little bit easier for people who are working full time and can't afford to feed their family. Like it's a left wing, it's a left populist position. Why the fuck are people not making it more?
Well, I will say, focus on your own fucking country, mate. Keir Starmer's brilliant. I've developed a real, I never liked him until recently. I've developed a real affinity for him, but not really him or his politics. When he was like potentially being subjected to a coup, and like he probably will be ousted as leader of the Labour Party at some point in the near future, everyone started posting like sort of edits with him as from that new Mussolini thing. I've not seen it, but and they were saying he was going to do like great bath party style purges and like all of this stuff. And you know what? I was like, I like this guy now. I like this guy. Having a bit of a shake up in Westminster, getting a bit crazy with it. But unfortunately, it descended back to reality, and he's not really like that. And not to say that I would endorse him killing people, but you know, purges would be interesting, showing a bit of fucking personality.
That's the first coup I could get behind.
What, him being taken out?
Yeah, take him out. It's the first time I'll back a coup.
You're another person who needs to go. You're going to be sent to Starmer's version
Chris
of the
is going to come for you, Isaac. It's over for you now.
He is a subject of the crown, so I feel like because I'm closer to the imperial core, I have a right to tell you. You know, when it comes to Lily, you guys kicked us out in 1770.
Bye.
1776?
Yes, sir.
Good. Well, not good.
Very good.
Coup that motherfucker and leave Latin America alone. That's my rule.
Please. God bless.
Speaking of, are we all
segue.
clued in with what happened? Yes. You see what I was doing there?
I liked it.
I was plotting on that for a little while.
This is the mind of a podcast, bro.
Yeah. Everything that's said, I'm thinking, how can I connect this to the next thing on the docket? Raul Castro.
My God.
I guess just to fill in the audience for what exactly is happening. In 1996, there was a group. It was called Brothers to the Rescue. It was actually founded.
It is a lame name.
It's so dumb, dude.
Lame name.
It's so dumb, dude.
I can just imagine some like Marco. Is the guy who made it still alive? Because I feel
Jose,
like
I don't know if he's still alive. Jose Basolto. But I was going to say, very important. Jose Basolto is CIA backed. He's a veteran of the Bay of Pigs invasion, and a lot of people don't know this. But in 1962. He participated in a fucking bazooka attack on a Cuban theater that killed 20 people. A fucking bazooka. Where did he get a bazooka from?
Do you know he said, I was a trained terrorist by the United States?
Well, just to fill the audience in who may not know. 1991, this group, Brothers to the Rescue, was founded by the guy I just told you, the weird terrorist bazooka guy. In 1996, this group, it's like a Cuban exile group from America, would fly into, they would constantly fly over to Cuba and disrespect their sovereignty and drop leaflets on Havana that would essentially explicitly call for the population to rebel against the government.
Who drops leaflets?
The most moral army in the world.
Yeah.
So it must be a moral action. I like this guy.
Yeah.
He may be a self-admitted U.S. government trained terrorist, but he drops leaflets.
Drops leaflets. Calling for insurrections.
Literacy, the people that could finally read in Cuba, God bless.
Yeah.
Reinforcing
Shout out
their
Castro.
literacy.
He also attempted to kill Fidel Castro with a 20mm cannon, which I feel like I should probably
add it to the
know
list, bro.
I should probably know what that is, but I'm thinking like a Looney Tunes style or like a cartoon style cannon that he's firing at Fidel Castro. He doesn't
He's got
sound
bazookas.
He doesn't because. So I was reading a couple of different things. I went on JSTOR to find out about Brothers to the Rescue, which is a great idea when you're learning about Cuba. And one of the articles that I looked at was just like, the Cuban government was very aggressive at this point. And then I had a look into some of the things that these people were up to and what the Cubans had tried to do. Because, sorry, Isaac, you were kind of explaining. They basically, Raul Castro's been... a 94-year-old man has been indicted for the shooting down of two of these brothers to the rescue planes.
So essentially what happened was this was a group that would constantly fuck with Cuba, and it wasn't just them. Like exile terrorism was a big threat for Cuba. And in 96, they, disrespected Cuban sovereignty. And Raul Castro, who was the defense minister at the time, allegedly gave the order to shoot them down, and they were shot down. And that was like this huge event. And now, all of these years later, Donald Trump is indicting Raul Castro for this, supposedly, seemingly to, manufacture some consent to go in and do like a Maduro-style operation or even just invade the country. But the thing that kind of, boggles my brain about this is, if this happened to the States, if Cuban planes were flying over Washington, dropping leaflets, calling for
bazooka,
the overthrow of Trump, or fucking, bazooking American theaters. This is a group that the Cuban government is very clear on. They call it a terrorist organization, and
because
national security, because they are, and National Security Archive, declassified documents came out not too long ago. They explicitly state that U.S. officials knew, they were aware that Brothers to the Rescue were provoking and taunting and disrespecting Cuban sovereignty. And if they didn't stop them, it would result, they would be shot down, and they still let them go. So
yes, the sacrifice. American citizens, we are sacrificial lambs. Duh.
I think one thing though you have to consider is, if the Cuban government was doing this, it would be a very different situation, because most Americans can't read. So if they were dropping leaflets, it wouldn't be such a horrendous act.
True.
No, they see the Cuban flag on it and they'd be like, is that a different American flag? What's on there? What is that? I don't know what that is.
I think it also is just, I mean, it's, once again, like, I think it must have been 7 years before this happened, in 1988 or 9. The US shot down an entire Iranian passenger flight, and the man who did it was given an award. The Navy captain who did it, they killed I think it was nearly 200 people. He was awarded whatever the highest medal you can receive from the Navy is, or one of the highest. And they're just sat here complaining about like a couple of Cuban exiles being killed, when Cuban exiles who were flying flights that the the special advisor on Cuba, Richard Nuccio, said they started to carry out a political agenda of harassing and threatening the Cuban government. It was pretty evident that they kind of wanted this to happen.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, like the US government, this is something that also folds into like the conversation about evilness and how it isn't really real. Same with like stupidity, right? The quote, like, never attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance or stupidity. Like the US government is not stupid. I don't understand. I understand where this talking point comes from, but like 30 years ago, when this happened, they knew it was going to happen. They admitted it was going to happen. It's a tool in their toolkit, right? For when they wanted to do something to Cuba again. It was inevitable. Like, you kill Americans, apparently they care. Like in the press statement that was released by this dude that was talking about the indictment a couple days ago, he was like, we're not going to allow other countries to sabotage or kill Americans. You're not going to get away with this. Americans get murdered all over the world every day. Yeah. In Palestine and beyond. They don't give a fuck about us. Like, and we know that, but I'm just making the point, like, yeah, everything is a tool for the American empire. Everything can be used for their advantage.
It's so interesting to see this being used to manufacture consent so many years later. That, I guess that's like the peculiar part about it. But yeah, this is something, like these. This is not something that is new. This is not a new tactic of the empire. They'll constantly do this. But since we're on the topic, and unless you guys have anything more to say about it.
I mean, I guess one thing worth noting as well is, I mean, you're probably both better equipped to talk about this than me. This is a really important, the fact that they're highlighting this is a really important moment in Cuban-American relations, right? In my understanding, it leads to the Helms-Burton Act being signed, right?
96. Yes. Yeah. And so they use it. Yeah. So the thing about the Helms-Burton Act is passed in 96 and essentially makes it so that the president cannot remove the embargo without going through the Congress, and it also implements something called Title III, which threatens to sue, businesses, anyone that traffics in goods that the Cubans are believed to have stolen from the Americans. So if you're like a company, you're doing business in Cuba, it opens you up to being sued in American courts, though this is legally very sketchy. It's not even really. You can't do anything. It's illegal. It's an extraterritorial application of one's will on other countries. It's not seen as something that's legal. But the reason I'm saying this in kind of like a hand-wavy tone is because people will point to this shooting down of the plane as the justification for the 96 Helms-Burton Act without mentioning that in 92, there was the Torricelli Act, which was passed before. So with this bombing or without this bombing, the Americans were dead set on suffocating Cuba regardless. They were going to do it regardless. Maybe this gave them a little bit of a push to, pass through the Helms-Burton Act, which was widely condemned as illegal internationally, because it is. But at the end of the day, fuck, man, they've been doing this shit since the 60s. Yeah. Eisenhower, then ramped up with JFK, and.
Did you know that Basulto, the guy who founded the Brothers in Arms organization, do you know he was a Bay of Pigs veteran?
Yeah, that's what I say. He's CIA backed. Yeah, veteran of Bay of Pigs, bro.
Imagine being like, there are pretty bad wars or pretty bad things to be a veteran of. That's got to be up there for like the worst military operation to have ever participated in, because it went so fucking wrong, right?
So embarrassing.
What? It's like they sailed across and then a couple of them got killed and they just fled, right?
I think it was more than that. I think they got onto the land, didn't they?
They got onto the land. Yeah,
they got onto the land.
Yeah,
they got shot down, and they were in there. I mean, they were shooting.
Got
to
arrested.
Kill.
Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's kind of like saying you're a veteran of the Korean War. Who cares? You know, like even Americans don't care. They call the Korean War the Forgotten War.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, it's a heinous and a horrible thing, and it's actually a terrible example. It's one of the worst examples of American imperialism.
Yes.
But like, you know, if you're a veteran of the Second World War is about the only thing that you can be a veteran of where most people will be like, yep, that was a justified war.
Yeah.
No matter like, I think this is the interesting dichotomy of like, obviously the US was bad, and what it did after the Second World War was heinous and during the Second World War, and the same with the UK and all these countries. However, simultaneously, you know, fighting the Nazis is about one of the only moral wars they've ever fought, because the First World War doesn't even have that justification.
No, it's just Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and then there you go, the entire continent.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, I don't know, because all of this just seems like fucking insane to me, because I'm not as well read on Cuba, Latin America, or South America at all, really, or the Caribbean. But when it comes to just like reading stuff like this about how they just did terrorism and the US government kind of was like, yeah, we do this, and now having to listen to the people who are just blowing up boats in the Caribbean and just just constantly say, yep, we're really interested in going after someone for something he did 30 years ago. But Fidel Castro took responsibility as well, right? It wasn't Raul. Was it Raul Castro? Because Fidel Castro said it was him.
Raul Castro was the defense minister at the time, and he's alleged to have fucking said to shoot it down. At the end of the day, man, this was a terrorist organization, an actual terrorist organization, did terrorism to the state of Cuba.
Purposefully.
They're allowed to uphold their national security.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of not knowing much about Latin America, it's okay, because the average American doesn't either. Like I had just gotten back from Cuba. I was in the thrift store near my house talking to them. The woman who works there is Cuban American, and when I told her I was going, I was like kind of wary, because I was like, oh, is she like that kind of Cuban American? But she wasn't. She was super down. Like, it was great. She was wonderful. She was a socialist, whatever. And this woman came in and said, "Oh, you went to Cuba? Did you have so much fun?" And I was like, no, like I cried the whole time. Like, and she was like, oh, she didn't know anything about it. And God bless her. But like, that's the average American, you know, that island is like off the coast of Florida, basically. You can get there very easily. And they have no idea what's going on down there. They have no clue. It's crazy.
Well, that kind of brings us to what we wanted to ask you. How was your trip? Can you tell us about it?
I hope you both get to go. At some point.
I'd love to.
I really hope so. How was my trip? I learned so much. So I'm a red diaper baby, right? My parents are both communists. So I was raised understanding Cuba. Funny enough, because you mentioned in the questions for the podcast, you want to talk about the compatible left. My parents are like compatible communists. Like,
interesting.
Which is interesting, yeah. So like my dad's a Trotskyist. Okay. So, and I'm not a Trotskyist. Not that it really matters. I don't care. But he is like not
we'll talk about it later.
We will. He's not into like the Cuban Revolution. Like he doesn't like authoritarianism. He doesn't like all these things. He understands the material changes and the benefits. He understands how evil, you know, pre-Castro Cuba was, all these things, whatever. But he's like, I just don't think it's right that they should have the same government. Okay, that's fine. I went and I was floored. And we had really packed days, which is good because I learned so much. But I think the thing that I felt the most, and then I'll tell you what I learned, is like obviously extreme guilt, because the Cuban people are enormously kind and forgiving and said to us over and over again, we know that your government does not represent you. And I was like, I am the minority. The majority of Americans don't know what's happening. God bless you. But they were amazing. You learn about, you know, Batista. We were in Freedom City, which is where the barracks were for Batista. We saw Batista's mansion. And we went to schools there that are now created out of old barracks buildings. We met all the kids there. We learned about how they organize. That children are very, very well respected in Cuba. They have many, many laws that protect and uplift children's rights and children's sovereignty that the U.S., of course, has never had and never will have. The healthcare is, of course, amazing. Women's healthcare is amazing. You get a doctor that visits your home every single day for the first year of your child's birth, visits you and your baby. Your job is guaranteed to you. You get full pay the entire time, and you get to go back to your job after you have your baby. Beyond that, of course, I met pro-intervention Cubans while I was down there, and I chatted with them because I wanted to talk to everybody. Like, I don't think I have the right to tell these people that they don't know what they're talking about. They have a completely different lived experience to me. I have no idea what it's like to live through an embargo. I really don't. And they said as much. They were like, I know that the United States government does not care about me and does not care about Cuba. I know that they're imperialists. I know that they want resources, but I need something to change. I need anything different.
Yeah.
And funny enough, one of the conversations that I had with someone that was pro-intervention, he was like, the difference between me and you is like, you have true freedom. Like, you have liberty and I don't have freedom. Like, I can't say whatever I want because yes, like, Cuba is not freedom of speech in the way that the United States is, but also neither are we. And I told him as much. I was like, when I get back to the United States the border rule or border law, I don't know if you guys know about it, but like within 100 miles of the U.S. border, I don't have constitutional rights in the way that I would outside of the U.S. border. So when you re-enter the United States, right, like you don't have right to an attorney. They can search and seize any of your technology that you have, and they will send it back to you. But like, they can take it. They have a right to, and they have to allow you re-entry at some point. They're not supposed to hold you longer than 24 hours, but they do. They don't care. So I told him, I was like, yeah, I'm training with the people that I came with for when I re-enter in case they stop me and question me and take my phone. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I don't have a right to a lawyer. Like, no puedo tener una abogada. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, there's no freedom. What freedom? So that was interesting too, talking about the discrepancies, the differences. We got to hear from actual soldiers that fought with Che, like the true comandante. It was amazing.
Hell yeah.
They were in Angola with him. I think it's Angola, right? Yeah, that was amazing.
Or Congo. If it was Che, it would be Congo.
Oh, it would be Congo. They were also, one of them was near Amilcar Cabral. Is that his name?
Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau, yeah. So one of them had worked, was there right after he was assassinated. Just amazing. It was amazing experiences. The main takeaway that I had, and this goes into your question too about compatible leftism in the United States and in the West in general, is, all of Cuban socialism has happened in the face of and parallel to the embargo, and they are still doing better for their average citizen than the United States government is for the average U.S. citizen. Through and through. And that's enough. That's enough reason to support them. Like, beyond the fact that, of course, they deserve support, obviously. But, like, this is just amazing.
I mean, when we look at Cuba, and, like, I do want to save the more, the futility of the Western left and the compatible left for the last segment. Sure. But when we talk about Cuba, I made this point in the video essay I made where you have to look at a country and a project, and you have to compare it to where it came from and to its contemporaries. When it comes to Cuba, you see it compared frequently to the United States, which had quite the head start. And Cuba was on the receiving end of colonial plundering and violence for forever. You mentioned that there was sentiment that you experienced in Cuba of people who were pro-annexation. That's not a new sentiment. This goes back to the colonial days. There were people in Cuba. There were camps. There were people who wanted the British to take over because they believed that at the time the British were freeing the slaves. Then there were also people who wanted the Americans to take over because the Americans were one of the last to abolish slavery, and they didn't want to give up their slaves. So you had this sentiment. When you have like a small country right next to such a big empire, you're always going to have like people who are interested in annexation and aligning their political project with what happens in the empire. But that's not to say the person that you're describing is like that, because as you say, like their material conditions are atrocious. Like the embargo is genocidal. If I was there, I would absolutely weigh those pros and cons. I'd say, fuck, like, do I agree politically with the project of the United States? Not at all. But do I want to suffer forever because they're bitter and stubborn and not going to ease the blockade.
A lot of the stuff of people liking the US was based on falsehoods, wasn't it? It was based on Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, right?
Yeah.
People, and like, also it's the fact that the British were kicked out by the Americans, that people genuinely at that time did kind of have this belief that there might be some shared solidarity with Americans who had fought for their freedom against the British, or freedom. Yeah, I know, of course, it's still a settler colony. There's one person who really doesn't like me and Isaac, who will probably highlight me saying this and being like, you're ignoring the settler colonial context. But I'm only bringing this up because it's the same with Palestine and the Middle East, right? When they asked Palestinians, the King Crane Commission, when they went over, they asked them, who do you want to be ruled by? And they said, first Syria, second America, not the British at all. They really did not want anything to do with the British, because there was this, and actually a lot of Mossadegh in Iran believed
Ho Chi Minh.
The Americans, yes, Ho Chi Minh,
Castro,
Nasser, so many people, they kind of looked to the Americans and they were like, well, you've become free recently from an imperial power, or recently-ish, so why don't you have solidarity with us? But of course, unfortunately, by that point, America had largely just come to fill the role that Britain had once played and has innovated it in many ways.
And it was always going to fill that role. Of course, it was inevitable. But that's the amazing thing about American mythology and the American dream and the mythos of this place, is that even if people think that they've deconstructed from it within or outside of the US, that idea just sounds so amazing that it captures people in a really unique way. America is as unique as it is very typical, I think, of every settler colony.
I know I've noticed this amongst some people who are kind of like, I think it's because they're to the right, like genuinely right wingers, but they're not just really stupid, that they're actually like thinking people, because I tend to find you either have like right wingers, and there are lots of people who are like soft left liberals who are stupid as well, and also people who think that they're really left wing who are stupid. But I noticed there are either like really racist people who like apply some crazy ass race science from the 20th century to sort of support their racism, or you kind of have these people who will discuss with Israelis or people from Israel that they're like, well, America's a nation of immigrants. America is a nation of all of its citizens, and Israel could be like that. That's what Israel could be. And it's like, well, I mean, the prerequisite of that was the extermination of any alternative society proposed. Yes. And unfortunately for the Israelis, there are far too many Palestinians and a far too sophisticated and developed Palestinian political movement in the 21st century that is going to have some kind of better support globally, that Israel cannot eliminate that. And so what will Israel do? Well, it's doing what it's doing now, which is finding exterminating the Palestinian people by other means, culturally, namely.
Yes. Well, that's the case with America too. This is like, I think it's really great that you know so much about Israel and Palestine, and so do you, Isaac. But this is like,
he doesn't. He just copies me.
I ChatGPT everything while we're live. Actually, that's how I know.
And you have ChatGPT and Claude over here, and you talk to them both, and they talk to them.
Exactly.
But
I got a cross-reference.
Yes. But this is Will that you had on, my friend. I love Will. He's so great.
He's great.
Will and I talk about this too, like, as U.S. citizens, especially as like people that are so ardently pro-Palestine and not just anti-Israel, because to be anti-Israel does not mean that you're pro-Palestine. It's our duty to connect these empires, right? Because people so easily and so quickly fall into the idea that, like you said earlier, Israel is special and Israel is different and it's unique, and it's not. They are just like 150 years behind the American project. That's it, right? I think of the day that Palestinians are supposedly or like horrifically called native Israelis, right? Like the Native Americans here. It's such a bizarre thing when you really think about it, like walking around calling people Native Americans. What the fuck is America? You know what I mean?
It's weird that you kept some of the names as well.
Yeah,
that there are like certain things
a lot of the
that
names.
Same with Canada as well, right? Because you have places like Montreal, which is obviously French. And then Saskatchewan. Is Kanasatake, why am I thinking about, is Kanasatake a thing?
I don't know. No, I don't know. But yeah. Like, when you think about...
The Israelis
in America,
who have
sorry.
replaced a lot of the native names for places.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is interesting.
To be fair, Israel has this different thing of it actually happened with the British when the British were mapping Palestine. They chose the biblical names, and Israel is largely because already then most Palestinian names had some kind of like biblical roots. Some didn't, but that's kind of where it came from. But what's interesting, I will bang on about this book. I actually haven't had a chance to read more. It's called Our American Israel by Amy Kaplan, and it's kind of about why Americans initially supported it, and a lot of liberals, people like I.F. Stone, there's a Frida Kirchway was also another person, W.E. Du Bois, people like this. One of the reasons that they championed it was because they saw Israel as really like America, but it was actually socialist with the kibbutzes and stuff, the kibbutzim. Yes. And so their love of Israel came from seeing America and seeing the repetition of their false vision of what America was, of like, you know, this kind of like homesteading life of the rugged individual and all of these things, except in Israel, they'd managed to collectivize it because basically, you know, they were working to enclose more land and expel people. And it's kind of crazy to think about, you know, so many liberals love this heinous project because they thought it was this exceptionally good thing, and that it didn't matter what the Palestinians thought because they were all just anti-Semites.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, both projects are what happens when you supposedly claim to be building a project on these humanitarian liberal values and very quickly betray them. Like the American Revolution, huge part of that had to do with the fact that the British were like a restraining hand and didn't want the American settlers moving more into indigenous land and, you know, starting more wars, which would cost the British Empire, you know, to fight them. There were selfish motivations for that revolution. It's often portrayed as though it's like the harbinger of human rights and you know, Western democracy, when in reality, big portion of that was they wanted to keep genociding the natives.
Yep.
Israel, you know, they hid behind that veneer of constructive socialism. Conveniently, that avoided or ignored, did not include the Arab population. So it was a very racist, dare I say, national socialism.
You got crazier shit going on in Canada, though. You've got French people who moved, French settlers who believe that they are like, whose argument is that they're suffering at the hands of the British and they're like major victims, but they totally ignore the indigenous people who were there first. So much so that, I don't know if either of you saw this, did you see the video of the Quebecois separatists training with the PLO in Lebanon?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I was literally that's why I said brother. I was like, just so you know, these people were trained by the PLO.
Well, the PLO was like this massively internationalist left-wing thing where you could go and train in militancy.
Yeah.
Plus you just had crazy groups rocking around at that time, like the Red Army faction who were just kidnapping and killing German politicians, which is just, you know, we think that, I always find that funny. We always think about like how everyone's always like political violence is on the rise. It's kind of like, well, I mean, first of all, the state is always inflicting violence, but there have been periods throughout the 20th and 21st century where a lot of people got killed, a lot of politicians. I mean, Lincoln got shot, for goodness sake.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk.
Can you believe it? Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie Kirk is our Lincoln, of course.
Unbelievable.
We are him if you want to get really crazy with it.
Before we move on to something more serious, what are your thoughts on Nick Shirley being sentenced to a gulag for life in Cuba?
Oh my God, please. I hope.
I don't know if you guys saw like the Instagram reels of some guy who went to like fact check him. He's like, dude, I'm in the lobby of his hotel.
Yeah,
he's not being like
stopped. Yeah. I think, my friend, he was in Cuba and he was like, come outside, Nick, and we'll talk. And he was actually sanctioned by the U.S. This just happened to him. His bank account was sanctioned because he was in Cuba and they took all of his funds from him. I think he's like figuring it out right now, but I was just chatting with him about it. Nick Shirley, my God. What a guy. It's kind of crazy because like in this sphere, right? Like Nick Shirley, Nick Fuentes, a lot of Nicks. What's up with that? Nick Shirley, Nick Fuentes.
Saint Nick.
Hello. Sneeko.
Is his name Nick?
Huh?
Is Sneeko's real name Nick?
No. I was just saying.
Oh. Oh,
But
I was like, damn.
imagine like what's going on with all these people. Yeah, you have this like very
Chico's real
interesting-
name's Nick.
No, it's not.
I just Googled it.
No, it's not.
It's Nicholas. What the fuck?
The trio, the triad.
Oh my god, it
Oh.
is. It's Nicholas Ken de Balinthazy.
What the fuck?
Oh my god. Wait, Clavicular's first name is Brandon or Brendan, right? I forget.
Braden or
Oh
some
my
shit.
god, yeah. Braden Peters or something like that.
Great name. Yeah, you have like this whole sphere of people
Nicks.
that are like they're amazing propagandists, and this is like what you were talking about earlier. Like they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. Like you're silly not to give them credit where credit is due because it works. Like they know what they're doing, and they also get paid very well.
Yeah.
He went down to Cuba. And he was like, I've been trapped in this hotel room. The secret Cuban guards are coming to get me. Please help me. And his like voice, his like so brain dead. God bless him. I think he's from Utah. I'm pretty sure.
He's benevolent. Leave him alone.
But I'm pro gulag. So if they wouldn't do
Okay.
that. But see, that's the thing too, actually. This is like the Cuban government has to teeter a very like hard line because anything that they do, like the idea of Nick Shirley being allowed into Cuba was already crazy enough to me. I was like, don't they vet these people? Like,
Yeah.
the fuck are they letting him in here?
They got to
I don't
up their
know.
authoritarianism. They're not authoritarian enough, to be
I'm
honest.
saying, hello?
I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to think if like Cuban government propagandist number one, who like Raul Castro was tweeting like, this guy is based and deserves a Pulitzer Prize. Imagining Raul Castro tweeting that is an interesting thought, first of all. But
Please.
second of all, like him imagining a journalist like that just being allowed to go film like homeless Americans being like, yeah, this country is sadistic
It's a
and
shithole.
evil. Yeah, and it's like, I think it's always interesting because, Marco Rubio made that comment the other day. He was like, Cubans are eating trash and garbage off the street. And it's like, well, what do you think's going on in certain parts of America? Like, what's Skid Row? Skid Row is one of the largest stable populations of homeless people in the world, right? It's like, Isaac, do you know I mean, you've lived in LA. You probably know it better than I do.
Yeah.
But I've just seen people going there and it looks awful. Like, it
But you
looks
know what?
awful for people.
Because I've spent a lot of time in Skid Row. I used to do mutual aid work down there. And the people in Skid Row are living very similar lives, like you said, to the people that are living in the slums of Cuba. You know the difference is people in Skid Row are dying on the street and nobody cares. And the people in Cuba are not dying in the street with nobody caring. If they are dying on the street, it's a really big deal. Like even with the I think there's like 100% spike in infant mortality rates because of this most recent escalation in Cuba. Like the infant mortality rate in Cuba is incredibly low. It is impressively low.
Yeah.
And a bunch of babies just died recently. Didn't have to die because of the embargo, the genocide.
And the blockade. Yeah, the blockade is like literally never factored in when you're talking to more like right-wing people. It's like,
No.
look at Cuba, look at how that's a testament to the failure, the inherent futility of communism.
Yeah.
Brother,
Yeah.
when Cuba had a trading partner, when the Soviet Union and the communist bloc was still present, Cuba was outperforming its neighbors. In the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, they were doing well.
Well, metrics don't matter to right-wingers.
Yeah.
Because then you get into this loop, right, where they go, oh, well, it's the failure of socialism. I'm like, okay, so what about the embargo? And they're like, well, the embargo is there because they're being mean to their citizens. And I'm like, why are they being mean to their citizens? What might make them do that? Well, the embargo, okay. And then you just go into a loop, a never-ending loop of arguments about it.
It's so funny because the Cuban government, relatively speaking, is like incredibly progressive. You
Yes.
want to look at the people the Americans align themselves with, go look at Mohammed bin Zayed, Mohammed bin Salman. These people are fucking monsters.
Yes.
There's no embargo on them.
No, in fact, there's unlimited. You look at
Money.
yeah, there's unlimited. Well, it's like if you look at who's bought the most weapons from America, it's by far the Saudis since 1950. Like, it's not even close. I think they're double the second
petrodollar.
closest. Yeah. Well, they also like Mohammed bin Zayed, as in the leader of the United Arab Emirates, just has a penchant for like advanced American weaponry. He's like a bit of a known collector of it. And they'll sell it to him. It doesn't matter what the fuck he's up to. It doesn't matter where it ends up. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about these countries being authoritarian. You know, they don't give a shit about anyone destabilizing countries. And it's interesting because obviously I'd offer way less defense to the Islamic Republic of Iran. However, you know, I've definitely mentioned this on here. Loads of people talk about how they've mismanaged water. That is true. They've done some not great things. A good example of this is Lake Urmia. But they are also dealing with climate change.
Yes.
Like, it's Iran. I think the hottest temperature in the world is generally recorded or the hottest temperature that we've ever reached is normally recorded on some airstrip in southern Iran or in the Gulf, because it's like 56, 57 degrees. And you kind of look at these places and it's like, yeah, I mean, like, definitely there's always so much more context than how people kind of want them to be framed. And this is even something that a lot of academics who talk about Iran do. When it's like, yeah, you can criticize their government and their water mismanagement, but might be worth mentioning they're going to be the biggest victims of climate change. But of course, people want to decontextualize the conversation because they want to make it entirely about, well, these people never gave a shit about their population. And, you know, there's definitely arguments for horrific acts undertaken by the Islamic Republic. But still, you know, things that the Cuban government has never done, by the way.
Nope.
Not even close, man. Not even close.
Cuba's never executed, you know, thousands of people in prisons.
Cuba is in a perpetual state of being on the receiving end of warfare, right? The blockade, the embargo, that's an act of war. I was studying the 1967 Six-Day War for this video I'm making, Israel War. And Zionists will point to Nasser's closure of the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping and argue that that constituted a casus belli for the war. And they'll say that that constituted an armed attack. Under Article 51 of the UN Charter, there needs to be an armed attack in order to defend yourself. That's what that states. People will point to that closure of the Straits of Tiran and say that that was an act of war. But then they'll, at the same time, simultaneously look at what Cuba has been enduring and not say that the embargo, not say that the blockade, the extraterritorially applied blockade, is an act of war? How? These are the same people making these arguments.
And they don't like brown people, Isaac. So
yeah,
a lot of them are brown and black people. But the white Cubans in America, those guys are okay.
Yeah, I like Marco Rubio. He's cool.
Well, one thing I was going to say before I forget, to kind of like draw the link between Cuba and Israel, and I think you guys will find this very interesting. Cubans in America actually have an incredibly strong, formidable lobby, Cuban-American lobby. They explicitly modeled that lobby after AIPAC. There's a book. It's Cuba, A New History by Richard Gott, and he details how these Cuban-American exiles, this lobby in America, was deeply inspired by the Israel lobby. AIPAC he names specifically.
What's it called?
Let me remember.
You've mentioned it before, actually,
Because Pakistan's one is called Pak, I think. And I always like that name. So I'm hoping they've come up with a good name.
No, it's in my notes for my Cuba video, but I can't remember right now.
I am actually, I don't know, Isaac, can I derail slightly to mention something?
Brother, what am I? What is this, an authoritarian leftist show, man? Am I going to fucking Stalinize you?
I mean, I don't know how much you care about electoral politics, Lily, but did you have any interest in the Thomas Massie stuff?
I was just going to bring that up because we're talking about AIPAC. It's a $37 million fucking race against Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie is one of the most ardently anti-Israel people in the U.S. government, was one of the most ardently anti-Israel people in the U.S. government. I think, if I remember correctly, he was the only one to vote no on some resolution. They're talking about how anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and AOC voted yes on that. I care about electoralism insofar as I know that electoralism for a lot of Americans really informs their politic and like really makes them think, especially considering AIPAC. Like a couple of years ago, nobody knew what AIPAC was. And now the average American will look you in the face and be like, I'm not going to vote for somebody that's supported by AIPAC at all. So that is a big win. That means something. Thomas Massie having $37 million put against him to elect somebody who nobody knows about, by the way. I don't even know this dude's name. I have no
Gallrain,
whoever the fuck.
He's a Navy SEAL.
He said Trump was like the Good Shepherd.
What?
Yeah, he compared Trump to like Jesus Christ.
Isn't that like literally like heretical?
Blasphemy?
You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
No.
A lot of this
interesting.
stuff
Cuban American National Foundation. So sorry. I found it in my notes.
Thank you. Cuban American National. Yeah, not as cute as Pac or APAC.
Yeah.
But Chris and Isaac, I don't know what you guys feel about electoralism, but it is interesting because there are two arguments to be made, right? The first argument is electoralism is pointless. There's no reason to participate in it. It's not going to do anything. These are very black and white feelings, obviously. But if they're spending $37 million to unseat somebody, clearly it matters to the people in power to some extent.
Yeah.
Because they do this every election now. This is a new thing. This is like the progressive accept Palestine type deal here in the US where people try to run and then you ask them to say free Palestine, like Jack Schlossberg of the Kennedy dynasty here in the US. Do you guys know who this is? Jack Schlossberg. No. So he's the grandson of JFK. And he's like a big internet personality. This is the new thing, right? People like become influencers, they become political influencers, and they're able to run campaigns because of this. Jack was asked by a New York City journalist, she said, "Can you say free Palestine?" And he said, "Oh, we're not gonna talk about that today." It was like a very viral video. And she was like, "What?" She's like, "Can you say fuck Israel?" He's like, "No, I'm Jewish." And this just happened like 2 weeks ago. And the minute that video went out, you go on his Instagram, every comment section, "Why are you a Zionist? Why are you a Zionist? I'm not going to vote for you, you're a Zionist." This is monumental. Like, this actually does mean something.
Yeah.
And there was a huge one in Philadelphia with Chris Rabb, who just won his election here in the US, and he is a democratic socialist and pro-Palestinian, so that's great too. All that to say, like, yeah, it does suck to lose people that are anti-Israel. Of course, I don't support Thomas Massie for obvious reasons, but I don't want more Zionists in the government. And pretty much everyone is one. So
I think it's also just kind of, I mean, first of all, like, I'm under no illusions about democracy. Sure. I do think, because when I talk to people about this, obviously I talk to a lot of Middle Easterners, and I remember one of my first videos that went viral like 3 years ago was about how America and the UAE stole democracy from Egypt. And a lot of people were like, we never wanted democracy. But the thing is actually people do want some kind of government or some kind of entity that is accountable to them, their wishes and their wills. Yeah. And that's kind of what I mean when I talk about democracy. It may not look exactly like Western style liberal democracy. And there is actually a conversation to be had about why Westerners were ever trying to force Christian style democracy, because they never count the Christian influence. By the way, just look at Europe, how many major European powers were dominated by a Christian party. I mean, Germany was literally dominated by the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, for many years of its, I think the majority of years since it was founded, post Second World War, it's been won by the CDU. And I think this whole thing of like looking at democracy and what it's becoming and what it always was, but how much worse it's becoming, where this is just a reality where, like, 65-year-old boomers can basically be propagandized into voting for Israel because a bunch of billionaires say that that's going to happen. And because, I mean, also there's a problem of, unwavering loyalty to Trump and, it doesn't matter what you actually think or feel. Trump is God. But yeah, I just think like seeing something like that, like I'm not a big fan of Massie. I'm sure I don't know enough about why Massie is problematic. I mean, I also
loves him. Chris loves libertarian economics. Off screen, when we're not filming, Chris is always talking about how much he loves Milton Friedman. He thinks that
Ayn Rand.
You can tell too. Like you can see the fountainhead stare in his eyes.
He loves it. He loves it.
Hayek. I'm not sure what he was up to, but
he loves Hayek. Friedrich Hayek.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
There's also something to be said too. So like my grandfather is an evangelical Protestant Christian Zionist. He kissed the wall in 2019. Really? Yes. I don't speak to him. I don't speak to any of my right-wing family. I haven't for a very long time. But he's a perfect example. He's like a Midwesterner who had a good job. He's a baby boomer. He had these amazing, completely luck-based opportunities, right? And Christian Zionism is a much bigger threat than Jewish Zionism is. Jewish Zionism is Jewish supremacy. I mean, we all agree on this. It's horrible and it's a horrible thing. But Christian Zionism is why the state of Israel is able to proliferate and expand, is because of the Christians that support it. And so, yeah, like, I don't know what to say about that. There's a lot of boomers that are just going to continue giving ardent support. Obviously, like, this continued genocide just further radicalizes people that are already to the right, further to the right, more often than not.
Also, I think everyone kind of wants to feel like Galileo, and for older people, because what is it that Galileo discovers? Is it like general relativity, that the Earth revolves around the sun as opposed to the vice versa? I think that's what he discovers. It had actually been discovered before, but it was much more to do with the persecution which Galileo faced, which made it like a much more sort of popular thing. That the theory, or why it was so much more controversial at that time, was because of the Inquisition and whatever. Maybe I'm totally wrong about the wording that I'm using, but I think what I'm saying is vaguely correct. But I think for a lot of these older people, I was watching this right-wing march, a lot of these older people were kind of, I think he's right-wing in the UK. He was at the march and he brought a Jewish guy with him who knew like a decent amount about Palestine, enough. And he's arguing with these older people and he's saying very like basic facts about Palestine. And these people are literally just like, no, you need to read your history. You don't know the history. Israel, like, it's anti-Semitic to say anything bad about Israel. Israel is never done anything wrong. It always existed. And when they're speaking to just like a young person who knows more than them, I remember having this experience at university. Some guy and his kid came up to us and they were like trying to talk to us about Palestine. And I was there with a couple of my friends, and like, obviously talking to someone who's very pro-Israel is quite simple, because you can largely just say what you are saying is matter of fact false. Like it's just wrong. Like you know, and so, but yet still, facts don't matter. Facts just don't.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
Facts
Chris?
don't care about your feelings.
Is
facts only care about your feelings. You only care about facts when they sate your feelings. That's the only thing that matters. That's what
how I feel.
Care about. Yeah, exactly.
Confirm my bias.
Like, it's like right now in the UK, right? I was thinking about this when you were talking about, I can't remember what earlier, but the UK has got net migration now down to 170,000 people. And everyone hates the Labour government because they're apparently allowing illegal migration constantly. They've cut it all down pointlessly, and it will not most likely be a beneficial thing at all for the UK. But they've done it, and it doesn't matter. There are still, most people think that the UK is being swarmed by never-ending hordes of non-white people, and that is the biggest scourge on America, and that Keir Starmer has allowed it. No one cares that he's... This is a matter of fact that he has changed that. And by the way, I'm not saying it's a good thing.
No, yeah.
But no one cares. It doesn't matter. The facts do not matter. The only thing that matters is an emotional connection to why people care about these things. And so I think when you're trying to displace these deep feelings, it has to be on an emotional level. And I think Gaza has actually showed that a lot, because I do meet a lot of older people who are like, yeah, I've really changed my views about Israel because of my emotional connection to Palestine. And perhaps even on a topic like Cuba as well, perhaps if people showed some fucking heart and realized that there's something inspiring about standing up to a massive oppressor for decades so successfully, that is an amazing and an impressive thing.
I think if the average American had a passport, which they don't, about half of us have passports. And
is that true?
Yes. I think it's about 50%, maybe 50%. It could be even less than that. Why? So they're cost restrictive, of course. I think that they're at least a few $100s. I forget how much I paid for mine several years ago. And then also, of course, we don't go on vacation outside of the country. I mean, it's a huge country, you know this. And travel is already cost prohibitive because we don't get vacation through work, and it's already cost prohibitive because the flights are very expensive, So even of the people that have passports, they don't get used very often. It's a very small percentage of Americans that are leaving the country regularly. All that to say, I would give anything to be able to take people on trips to Cuba regularly. Make contingency trips down there, which lots of groups do, but it's typically like people within the organization, and that's just what it is, because you cannot look a child in the eye that's being starved by your government and tell them this is the right thing to do. And all those children understand what's happening. They're incredibly intelligent. They're incredibly well informed. The average Cuban citizen has a understanding of foreign policy that the smartest Americans don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should found Birthright Cuba. You should call it Birthright Cuba.
Yes,
teach the
literally.
kids to Aliyah to Cuba, to the left-wing heaven.
Yes.
What do you think the potential future for Cuba is? Because you were there, you probably have a better finger on the pulse.
Yeah, I made a video about this yesterday because obviously the end goal of the United States is to have every leader of a country that's not willing to work with the U.S. held up in some prison in the U.S., right? Yeah. And to show as a trophy. I wish I could tell you that I feel hopeful. I'm obviously a revolutionary optimist. So I'm always hopeful in the face of like doom. And that's what the Cubans are as well. That's like how they survive. They have no other choice, really. The United States is spreading itself thin. Of course, it's in constant battle and in constant terror. This escalation with Raul is very concerning to me. I can't think that there won't be further escalation. Even Trump said yesterday, he was like, yeah, we indicted him, but I don't think anything's going to happen from it. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
I never know with him. I can't even use him as like a, you know,
it
any
seems
kind
like
of
it's, it just seems like it's this big concerted effort to manufacture the consent. You got Nick Shirley, dumbfuck influencers going over there talking about how they're evil dictatorship. You have, Marco Rubio constantly. It's his lifelong vision, his lifelong goal to destroy Cuba. Trump doing this shit.
Yes. And he's like, actually, or no, it was Ted Cruz. Like, actually, Batista tortured my dad. I'm encouraged by China's investment in Cuba. I'm very happy about that. They have helped to increase their solar productivity by like 3 times or 4 times that they had previously. Cuba's on the way to being able to be completely existent on solar. And obviously, like, Mexico is kind of an ally to them. Venezuela really can't do much anymore. Russia has given them some aid. That's great. They're obviously out of oil once again right now. They need even more oil.
Yeah.
The international community must step up and be there for Cuba in a way they never have been before. And if they can't do that for Palestine, they will not do that for Cuba. So I don't have much hope.
It's funny,
I know the Cuban people will fight to the end. That's all that I care about. Go ahead.
It's funny because the Cubans and the Palestinians are consistently there for others. Cubans were there for
always
the Angolans, the Congolese. They're always there for the people in Latin America.
Arafat gave blood for victims of 9/11.
Yeah.
You know something that really
in
fucking...
Gaza.
This is going to piss a lot of people off. Cuba famously for years treated the Ukrainian victims of Chernobyl. Ukraine, in recent years, has refused to condemn the blockade on Cuba at the UN.
Yeah.
Ukraine, the greater Israel. That is their goal.
That kind of fucking pissed me off, man. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, I think it is kind of this... It's this horrifying bind for like, any country. Like a country like Ukraine is kind of forced into that position because it's like, hey, I need American weapons. Yeah. How do I get those? Never do anything about countries that are doing really heinous things. I mean, there's that Palestinian rap battle, which Isaac, you've definitely seen. Have you seen it? Harden your heart, oh Putin.
Oh yeah.
So it's actually a rap battle, which is the part that you forget. It's because his part where it's this you might have you seen do you use TikTok a lot?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's these two Palestinian guys who are always having rap battles. It's like it's not a rap battle, so to speak. It's actually like a tradition. I think it's Arab more generally.
I've seen videos like this. I know the thing you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes,
They're
and
cool.
so the most famous, the most talented, I've forgotten his name, but he's like oh, harden your heart, oh Putin, and strike Ukraine, and we will marry Ukrainian women. And then the other guy's like defending Ukraine in the rap battle. It's quite a strange thing, but the particular thing that they're actually citing, because it was pre-October the 7th, was how in 2021 Ukraine had not stood with Gaza when it was bombed. And so I think that there's like this whole thing of just like Ukraine is obviously in a bind that it's fighting this war against a foreign invasion. However, simultaneously, it's just so disappointing on the international stage to see this, when once upon a time there was kind of like this concerted solidarity between a lot of groups of people, especially Palestinians, Africans, and of course the Cubans as well.
Yeah, even around the Caribbean, because Cuban doctors are the most amazing doctors on the planet. I mean, they are beyond incredible and have given so much help to countries that have needed them, and they've been completely abandoned by many of them. Because of pressure from the United States, countries have put Cuban doctors out of their countries and sent them back home.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just looking into this right now.
No,
Ukraine actually voted against lifting the embargo on Cuba while 12 countries abstained. So Ukraine could have just abstained if they wanted to secure American aid, right? I don't know why they had to vote against lifting the fucking blockade on Cuba. It's kind of...
I assume
what
because
did Poland vote?
Oh, good question. I don't know.
Probably was fine with it. Poland's crazy.
It was the 7 countries that voted against lifting the blockade were Argentina, Hungary, Israel, North Macedonia, Paraguay, Ukraine, and the U.S.
What's up with North Macedonia? What the fuck?
Yeah, South Macedonia is where all the base people are. I think it's just called Macedonia.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's strange.
I mean, it's kind of also, speaking about like the futility of democracy, it is kind of crazy that once a year, like the vast majority of the world votes, you should not blockade Cuba, and
nothing happens.
Then the blockade continues.
Yeah.
100%.
Because it's a general assembly. Fucking useless.
Same with Palestine.
Yeah.
Same with Palestine, that it's the fact of like almost everyone in the world can say, I think there should be a Palestinian state, agreeing to what the international community has ostensibly respected for the longest time, the two-state solution. And then Israel just goes, no, we're going to keep doing apartheid and genocide and expelling Palestinians.
What are you going to do about it? Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. What are you going to do about it? Because America will forever back us up on the international stage,
Yeah. I mean, you can show the average American how they vote every year that food should be a human right, and the only 2 countries, I think the last time I voted against were the U.S. and Israel, and they're like...
Yeah.
Food still shouldn't be a human right. Then somebody has to use their labor to give you food.
Yeah,
you don't deserve that. Like, bro.
All of that stuff is just unbelievable that there are so many people who advocate to just be in like the wage cage forever.
Yes.
Just to like, that you should accept that, that everything should cost so much money when it's like so unproductive, and so many of the issues that people whine about, like immigration. Well, like immigration is just a way more fun politics than being like, no, everyone should suffer slightly, should suffer slightly of some of the like amenities that we have right now, so that we can all have a more decent equality. Because what these people are like is like, well, no, I'd rather just blame immigrants because it's so much more fun. Like it just is. Like blaming immigrants for your problems is so much more simplistic, and it's a way to feel better about yourself, or blaming exoticizing Cubans and creating them as the enemy and being like, well, your society's bad and we're fighting for your freedom. It feels much better. It does. Like, truth be told, it does. It feels much better for most people.
Do you want to get into the next segment about the futility of the Western left, compatible left?
I want to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
I also want to learn more.
So 9/11, what was that all about?
I wasn't born yet, so I cannot. I'm absolved.
Oh, okay.
I was nine months old, so
you were there.
It was a good.
I was 3.
It was not a
you
good
were 3.
thing.
You were 3. Oh, you're the oldest
3.
one here, Isaac.
Yeah, I was calling the shots actually.
Do you remember it?
Walkie-talking with my boy on the plane.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, dude, I orchestrated it. What are you talking about?
Do you remember it? Because I feel like if I was like a kid,
yeah, I do actually remember it.
Yeah,
when I was
do?
Yeah, I have a crazy memory. I remember when my sister was born, and I was 2.5. I remember the hat I wore. I remember, it was really strange. It was this little bucket hat with little like red cube, black, green cube, yellow cube.
That's
very,
fascinating.
very
so you had memories like right when you're capable of having them. I think it's like literally 2.5 or 3 when we're forming
that's
our
the
very
first thing
first
I
memories.
Ever, yeah, that's like my. Yeah, I can't go any
I was
further
2.5
back.
when my sister was born. I don't remember it at all. Good for you.
Yeah. I don't remember anything.
Interesting.
At all.
No,
ever.
Nothing.
It's all the dang. It's all the dang pot you're smoking, Chris. Right out the womb with the spliff, bro.
Exactly. That's the major issues that have plagued my life.
And you remember 9/11? That's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't interested in politics because I was fucking like 10. but I don't remember the Arab Spring. I don't remember many things. I don't remember when the 2014 Crimea War.
I don't remember that at all.
Don't remember basically anything.
You remember?
I remember it all. I was there for all of them.
Isaac
I was in
captain.
Tunisia. I was in Tunisia when it kicked off. I was in Crimea when it kicked off. Just be traveling, bro. Lily, how did you become a Marxist? What kind of Marxist are you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm called a tanky, but I'm not a tanky. Like, I have tanky elements.
What does that mean? So what does that mean? Because I get called a tanky too. I just kind of wear it as a badge of honor at this point. I don't give a fuck.
It's not a horror. So technically, tanky comes from people that supported tanks. Chris might know this. Tanks going into was it Yugoslavia or something?
No, it was Hungary. It was Hungary.
Oh, Hungary.
But it was in 56. It was the crushing of the rebellion in 56, and the people in the British left started calling other leftists tankies. I know their origin, but what does it mean today? Because the way that it's used today,
that's what it's how it's used largely.
The people I see using the term the most, though, aren't even leftists calling other people like Stalinists or whatever. It's liberals calling anyone to the left of Joe Biden a tanky. So that's where the confusion comes in for me, because it's like, okay, if we're going to stick to the original meaning, sure.
They don't even know that, though. They don't even know that is where that comes from. Like, because I get called it mainly by other like Gen Zers, and I know for a fact because a lot of them are leftists, but a lot of them aren't. I know they don't know what that means. Yeah. I think largely it's just like what you were talking about. It's people that support actual socialist revolutions in general. If you say anything good about the USSR, you're a tanky. If you say anything good about China, you're a tanky. Like,
it's so interesting.
The bar is very low.
It's interesting because the term, we all agree it originated with the 56 Hungarian crushing of the revolution, but now it's synonymous, at least with like leftists who use it and try to use it accurately. It's synonymous with Stalinist. Yeah. But Stalin was dead in 56. It was Khrushchev.
They don't care about that.
So, I mean, it's interesting because the way I'm only ever encountering it is conservatives and liberals, maybe some social democrats
I hear it from leftists.
Using it.
Mainly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. So what kind of communist am I? I support existing revolutions. I support previous revolutions. I'm not like an absolutist, though. I think it is really important, like all scientific socialists or communists or even leftists should be critical and honest about historical realities. A lot of the things that end up being argued about, frankly, are very boring. Like, I don't need to argue about Trotsky and Stalin all day long. I could, like, if I really wanted to. But those are like a lot of the arguments that get put into the online sphere, at least. When you're in real life with other people, no one cares.
Literally no one gives a shit.
No one gives a shit. Like, go outside.
You can go look at my old YouTube videos, my old YouTube videos. I'm very critical. I'm actually more critical of like Stalin and the USSR and China. That's actually kind of where I came from. Like I guess I kind of cut my teeth in like leftcom, that kind of tradition. Yeah. Though I don't really hold those positions anymore. And I think one of the reasons I was like that, I was very critical. I was very hesitant to hype up, say, the undeniable achievements of the Soviet Union or China or Cuba or whatever, is because there's kind of like this thing that younger leftists, newer leftists do, where they want to try and make their ideology somewhat appealing to, say, liberals who they're trying to convince. Yeah. And the easiest way, at least the way I thought of it, the easiest way to sell what I believe in my ideology is to distance myself from the projects that get a bad rap in the West. But that's a mistake, because I never really questioned, why do these projects get a bad rap in the West? I kind of latched onto a faulty premise right from the jump, as opposed to trying to being like, these projects are the greatest poverty alleviation projects known to man. And instead of going down that route, I went down that's not real socialism, though. That's Stalinism. That's the blah, blah, blah. And over the past year, 2 years, those are definitely sentiments that I've changed my position on. I don't really hold them, but I think it stemmed from wanting to be compatible with the mainstream political zeitgeist.
Yeah, frankly, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to have people constantly like throwing U.S. propaganda onto you, right? Sorry, Chris. I know.
No, not at all. Don't worry.
Chris loves U.S. propaganda.
I've had a stressful few days, so
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Everything is somewhat fine right now.
Well, I'm glad you're here. That's all I care about.
Yeah, no. Isaac's been very loving and caring towards me after my
been sending him
stressful couple of days.
Been sending him voicemails.
Strange emojis. But
Do I see?
Don't show that. He sends me these. They're like WhatsApp emojis as well.
No, they're not.
To
I created them.
Isn't it so good to have healthy male friendships? I'm so happy for you too.
Definitely.
It makes such a big difference.
Damn.
Let me see.
Hold on. I don't want to show you my messages with Chris because it's literally just me telling him how sexy he is all the time.
I bet. That's the vibe you guys give.
This is the thing he's talking about. I'll send this to him.
You sent it to me first, but on accident, and now you just keep sending it to me.
You think that was an accident?
That's what
you think that was an accident.
I think one of the interesting things that you're talking about here is, so obviously my perspective on all of this is quite different, because how I really got into caring and studying things more was through decolonial politics.
Yes.
Like, it was through reading Mamdani's dad's book was one of the biggest influences on me. And I did actually read quite a lot of, I think Eric Hobsbawm would literally be considered a tankie because he quite liked the Soviet Union, and he was probably the most influential figure on the British left at that point. And, up to his death was incredibly influential. But for me, it's always been like, I don't know. My hyperfixation has always been on foreign policy as opposed to domestic policy.
Yeah.
Because I'm so much more interested in the fact, or not so much more, I think domestic policy matters, but what has always been of more interest to me personally has always been the way in which there is just like this glaring lack of human dignity all over the world. And the fact that there is not these exoticized differences in people who live apart. Everyone is kind of like this fractured individual who doesn't really understand themselves in the way that we kind of think that we all do. And so these changes have to occur globally. And so it's very interesting when I kind of encounter someone who's, hyperfixated on one country or is very set on talking about specific Marxist analysis from the early 20th century or before, because like that is interesting to me, don't get me wrong, and I like theory, but simultaneously I spend most of my time reading the news now. I'm becoming more stupid, if anything. I'm not equipped to have, debates on my preference between Chomsky or Epstein, who I prefer.
Piqued our interest. Well, this is the same thing too, actually. There are so many things that you have to fight against when it comes to like Western Marxism. Have you gotten the chance to read Who Paid the Pipers of Western Marxism yet?
Gabriel Rocco? Yeah,
Have you read it?
I'm thumbing through it.
I think you'd enjoy it. It's a really great book.
Yeah.
You're battling against not only the U.S. government, which is what a lot of it is. Like, they said it themselves in declassified documents. They were like, yeah, actually people, felt this way about Stalin and felt this way about Castro and so da-da-da. And these are the advantages they did. And they actually succeeded in this way. And you have a history of U.S. communists, but also just the average like American citizens who during the Great Depression went to the USSR. We don't learn about that in school. Nobody talks about that in school. And then you also have people that talk about Marxism as like a white man's theory. And they're like, Marxism is white and there's no decolonial aspects to it. And I'm like, okay, then what about all these people that used Marxism to fight off colonizers? Because that doesn't make any sense. But to your point, actually, Isaac, because it's a huge thing to like come from a space of being a Western Marxism and to find your way out of it. I think that's really interesting. I never had that. I luckily was like,
born with perfect politics right from the jump.
No, not even. Like literally, I just was like, I'm just like I'm technically also called a campist. You usually get called a campist and a tankie at the same time, right?
Yeah, the smarter critics are now trying to use that term because they understand that tankie is overplayed.
Yes, so they're like, you're a campist. But I thought to myself, I was like, yeah, I'm sure the USSR had its flaws because every project in every country does. That's kind of how it works. We're humans. But I don't really care because they were also like constantly at battle with the world's most powerful historical empire of all time. So that's all that it was for me. And of course, I'm always learning. I'm not an expert by any means on the history of all these different projects, but yeah, we're going to have to move people further to this non-compatible left. That's like kind of this amazing like trajectory we're on right now in the UK too, and in Canada, I imagine as well. People being fed up. I mean, the Green Party's wins, I think, show that in an astronomical way.
It's surprising as well because Polanski looked like he was going to capitulate like Mamdani.
Yeah.
And there have been some questionable things over how he kind of highlighted spiritualist Zionism, which is such an early... Like people who talk about this of like, oh, well, the initial Zionists didn't want a state in Palestine. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe, but that died a very long time ago. However, when he was asked about like, does Israel have a right to exist? He was just like straight up, no. He was like, no state has a right to exist. It was quite surprising to see.
Mamdani did not do that. He folded before he even got through the primary, which was so sad for me.
Yeah, it was disappointing, especially because... You know, as I've mentioned, Mamdani's dad is a magnificent academic, like really, really interesting. Yeah. His book opens with like for Zoran, you will change, I don't know, something like you'll change the world or something. Wow. And yeah, I don't know, just like, I guess looking at the fact that this sentiment is there, that it has to be simplistic and popular, that it has to focus on things like housing, housing, basic necessities and things. Well, I guess that encompasses most things. Housing, wages and basic necessities. That is what matters. Yeah. And thankfully, there has not been something as calcifying foreign policy-wise as Palestine.
Yes.
Like Israel is straight up indefensible.
Yeah.
And the desire to cling to it by mainstream left-wing parties is at this point so repugnant that it is raising questions about how it will ever be possible again, because there are now too many people who are just straight up like anything but the maximum of just Israel being done with us is not good enough.
Yeah.
That is not a non-zero thing. And it's interesting as well now how many people who were formerly right-wing, whose politics are really motivated by that, whose politics are literally just like, I fucking hate Israel. And I'm not sure that that's always perfect. I'm not sure that that's always going to lead us down the best path. However, it is indicative of this change, this groundswell. And, you know, Ilan Pappé mentioned this. If you'd told him 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even in 2023, that Israel would be before the International Court of Justice accused of genocide, that multiple of its leaders would have been indicted by the International Criminal Court, he would have said that will never happen. And he's right. Because there is this change. And obviously, you know, I'm glad to hear that you have this optimism, because I do worry that pessimism that people hold is kind of... similar to right-wingers who envision like this apocalypse end of the world style scenario that many leftists gain catharsis through envisioning an end that comes through just the climate. And so it's like, what does any of this matter anyway? Because I do think there's hope. And I do think there has been a change in how people feel about foreign policy, about Palestine, about, you know, about what is okay and acceptable for a politician to support.
Pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. Speaking of Gramsci, you know Pete Buttigieg? Do you guys know who that is?
Yes.
Yeah, his
you know
grandfather.
His dad? Was it his grandfather or was it his dad?
I thought it was his grandfather.
Was
who
the
translated
translator
the prison.
of Gramsci?
I know, because I have the prison notebooks. I'm reading it, and it says translated by Buttigieg, and I'm like,
and you're like, what the fuck?
Same guy?
Yeah, I was actually a doomer for a very long time. I think it's a very unique experience growing up class conscious. Like, it's very weird because you go to school and you tell everyone, like, this shit's crazy. Like, do you guys know what's up? And people bully you for it. They don't like you for it. Why do they? No one wants to hear that shit. Like, you're a nerd.
Yeah.
And
call me kindergartner.
Exactly. They're like, girl, shut the fuck up. So then when I went through high school, I dropped out of high school pretty early on, but when I went through teenagehood, and then came into adulthood, I was very much so a doomer because climate change was on my mind. It was a central focus of my mind. I knew, and I've always known, just how bad it's going to get, especially here in the U.S., especially with the southern states. You want to talk about immigration as a problem. We're going to see mass migration in the next half a century that we have never seen before from South America and North America. You already know all this. But I realized, and this is so funny, this is my new segue to giving you both praise, because I didn't know about the online left at all. Like, I didn't really have Instagram for a good bit in my earlier 20s. And then Kamala lost. God, like, I wanted her to win so bad.
You could have been at brunch.
Yes, me and Mama La. And so I got into the internet, right? And I found Hassan. I knew Hassan existed, but I'd never watched him. And I found Sam Cedar. And then I found Chris. And I found Isaac. And I think you guys do amazing work. And I thought you guys did amazing work. That I thought then and I think now. And it was actually through people like you two and through you two that I developed a much more revolutionary, optimistic politic, because I was like, there are millions of us that feel this way, all three of us included as well. And we really don't have any other choice, to keep going. What else are we supposed to do? Like, fall into this misery that they want us to fall into? I don't want to live like that. And I can't do anything. I'm useless if I'm like that as well. So, So thank you both. Thank you.
I think one of the things, though, that kind of is troubling about all of this online left-wing politics, I mean, there's much to be said about content, like the form of the content that you produce, that it's short form and that maybe people won't read. But even then, I think most anyone who is predisposed not to read and just watch short form will continue to do that. And so there's merit to that. But I think you also do push people to it. But the most difficult thing is kind of like how the thing that's a problem is for so many like left-wing content creators, first of all, because of principle, but second of all, because of the general ecosystem that exists in the media and also politically, it is really hard to turn being a left-wing political commentator into a job.
Yes.
Because of how difficult it is to monetize in any aspect. Whereas being like the most moronic right-wing content creator, it's pretty good. I'm pretty confident.
So when are we
going
to become right-wingers? What are we waiting for?
I know.
Exactly?
I want the free trips. I want the free holidays. Like, all of these content creators were just all together in Israel recently. And I have no proof. And I am, I am not insinuating anything here, but I do find it a bit bizarre how they're all doing the same things, that someone somewhere has organized some kind of trip where they all get free stays to make unlimited content together. And you kind of look at how well organized right-wing online politics is versus left-wing politics. And you're like, God, it's tough. It's tough out here for like trying to build platforms, for trying to make people understand. And it's also not helped by, as I'm sure you well know, talking about complex issues. It's much easier to just go, black people are bad and they're ruining the country. Immigrants and Islam are responsible for degradation, as opposed to like...
I'm clipping this shit.
But no, it's just unfortunate. First of all, as I say, like to kind of summarize, it's so much more monetizable being a right-winger because you can get those Kalshi sponsorships, crazy as shit going.
We just had the first state in the U.S. to ban Kalshi, by the way. Kalshi.
Really?
God bless.
What was their justification?
Minnesota or Michigan? I don't know. Let's look it up. Was it Michigan?
Because I saw some people who were outraged about like whether American soldiers, you could bet on like whether an American soldier would be killed by Iran.
Bro.
And it's kind of like...
Damn.
I can't.
I heard you put your life savings into that one, Chris.
Well, let's just say I'm balling at the moment.
Well, and this is the problem too. Not the problem. This is the uniqueness of the left-wing pipeline, which is that in order to become a leftist within the imperial core specifically, you need to unlearn, not reinforce, which is all that the right-wingers are, because America isn't always has been right-wing. Liberals are right-wing. So like you're just going further right-wing or reinforcing right-wing values. And yeah, it is more difficult, much more difficult to make a career out of this. But I think that also is unique because I think the majority of the people that I interact with that are doing stuff online actually have normal jobs too, and then make these videos as well, which is a selling point for the average person who like has their favorite content creator that they watch on their lunch breaks or when they're at home or on the weekend, because they're like, oh, they're just like me, and actually you don't have to be special or elitist or academic or any of these things. You're great that you're an academic and went to a great school.
Not really anymore.
Once were.
I just read the news now, as I say.
Yeah.
Reading the Financial Times has turned me into a conservative.
Oh my God. Could never be me. Could never be me.
I love the Financial Times. I read it so much. Only because it's like, you know, half the time it's like, they talk about the gilt market and the bond market in the UK, and half the time I'm like, yeah, this sounds great. You definitely know what's going on here.
Lord help us all. But yeah. And, you know,
I guess
difficult.
that kind of, everything you said just kind of makes me really harp in on the fact that the left, especially like the online left, is very quick to fraction off and turn on each other. And when you when you juxtapose that with the right, who is seemingly willing to invite any and everyone, no matter how repulsive or
any race,
tame
any gender.
Candace Owens was like
all of it.
A black lady who quite liked the Nazis, who was employed by Ben Shapiro
Vibes.
for the longest time. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, and that kind of makes me want to ask you, Lily, what are the limits? Because there needs to be obviously a red line when you're building like a left-wing coalition.
Anti-capitalism. That is the line.
Absolutely.
I think.
So
yeah.
anyone within that parameter, you're cool to build a coalition with.
Yeah, because most of the organizing work that I'm doing is not happening online, right? Like I'm interacting with people. They're watching my videos. I'm watching theirs.
I shouldn't say online. In general.
Oh, like in general. Yeah, I have a great time. Like all the mutual aid work that I've done, even organizing, like I'm beginning to do work on legislation. I'm working on an anti-BDS bill here in Illinois. We were the first state in the US to pass restrictions on BDS 10 years ago, and now we want to get it repealed, right? So like it's a huge deal. I hope it works out, inshallah.
Wow.
But all
Keep
that
us
to
posted.
say,
That's amazing.
yeah, it's a huge deal. And so these people that I'm working with, most of them aren't communists. Like they're like vague leftists, they're progressives, but they understand that capitalism is the problem. And maybe they want to reform the American empire. I don't know. But I don't think we really have the luxury of being picky. And
beggars can't be choosers.
Beggars cannot be choosers. However, and this is a big however, this is a perfect example, Mamdani. We all know the limits of reformism. We all know what eventually happens. The issue with reformism is that you have to give in to the empire because that's how it works. It's how you maintain and keep power within the empire's structure. So like, yeah, if you are an anti-capitalist, you must then by definition be an anti-Zionist. You must also by definition be inclusive of all people, because if you're anti-capitalism, then naturally you should also be pro all humans, because that's like the entire point of anti-capitalism. But I don't care if people are anarchists. I don't care if they're trots. I don't care if they're Maoists or like whatever.
I always find
the white Maoists.
I always find like these hyperfixation on like the little, niche sects very, very counterproductive and annoying. Like I told you, I come from like more of a left comm, kind of closer to anarchist tradition. I no longer hold those beliefs. Even when I was close to considering myself an anarchist, I never had ire for Marxist-Leninists. I just thought I don't really agree with them. But
and I'm like,
but a lot of them do. And
can we just have love?
I mean, I've heard arguments combating what I'm saying right now, and the argument typically goes, well, if you don't figure out your differences now, you're gonna have to figure them out later. But I'm like, bro, dude, we have so much fucking time. Do you see the state of things right now, dude?
I know. They're like the Vanguard Party. I'm like, where? Yeah. What Vanguard Party, girl?
I think I heard someone Chris? Once. My favorite thing one of my favorite things I've ever heard to describe someone's politics is the capture of right wingers of the term vaccine skeptic is the worst thing ever, because using the term capitalist skeptic and explaining everything you feel about capitalism as if it was some kind of conspiracy theory is just amazing, because it would be one of the few conspiracy theories that everything you would say is true. Yeah. It's obviously like, it's not a conspiracy theory, and that's not what I'm suggesting. But if you understand what I'm saying, like I love this term capitalist skeptic in the sense of like, I'm totally skeptic of any kind of reform or means to make this exist. I don't believe that there is any manner, because I solely believe that it pertains specifically to prioritizing people over profit. Yeah. That is the fundamental issue. That is incongruent with nearly everyone's, almost everyone's politics, except from like, really specific mad racists who are like, no, I really hate non-white people just because they're non-white. Because you look at like, I do actually kind of shudder at some of this when people are like, you don't understand, all these people who are at the race and the racism march in the UK are good people at heart. And it's like, not all of them are. There are bad, wicked people.
Why are we generalizing?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's just not true.
Let them be free. Let them be their racist selves. But
that's right.
What I mean is, a lot of the diagnoses of their problem is like, why have we got homeless veterans in the streets of the UK? And I'm like, okay, first of all, not the biggest fan of the veteran stuff anyway. You know, they killed a lot of people. So if they're a Second World War vet and they were killing Nazis, okay, fine. But still, you know, no one deserves to be homeless. This is the point.
Yes.
And all of the problems that they're talking about really have nothing to do with immigrants. It just pertains to a system that is always going to require like these expendable people who are of low wage that at times of boom can be used to work and at times of bust are kind of disposed of and left to kind of rot away. And, you know, unfortunately, with the direction we're sort of heading, it seems more and more human beings will fall in that disposable category. But unfortunately, people may end up going down a path of blaming the other rather than confronting the reality in front of them.
Yeah, watching Nicole Good be murdered here and then shortly thereafter Alex Preddy, I think that was a wake-up call for a lot of people. I'm not a proponent of accelerationism. Capitalism is already accelerationist. I actually don't need to do any more accelerating. Like, it does it for us. But that's a perfect example. Like, the average white American does not think that they're threatened still, even though they can't pay their bills, even though the majority of Americans are paycheck to paycheck and do not have anything in their savings and will be crippled by any kind of medical emergency. They watch those people get killed and they're like, oh, wait, maybe it is... I should care a little bit about this, you know? And of course, those are like moments of mass organization and it disperses. But it's May now and we're going into the summer and ICE is only going to get worse here in the US. And we have ebbs and flows of ICE activity. But I think that's unfortunately what it comes down to. People have to be shown the reality that like, not only are you expendable, everyone you know and love is too. You're not special.
Yeah. It kind of just temporarily breaks them out of the, you know, they can start to understand who the true enemy is at that moment. They can think, okay, it's not really the immigrants. ICE is supposedly here to protect me from, you know, my Guatemalan neighbor. It's not them. It's the powers that be. It's the capitalist system. Yeah. And, you know, to kind of like draw the loop with how we started this topic, there are countries that have rearranged their priorities and stated, okay, we no longer prioritize profit. We prioritize the well-being of people, and we try to make that project a reality. And, you know, speaking from someone who was often very critical of those projects because they weren't perfect enough, they weren't pure enough for my liking, I think it just kind of lays bare the inherent Eurocentrism in that. Because again, I'm in the West. I don't really have to worry about... Like, I get a lot of these liberal freedoms because I'm not being besieged. I'm not on the receiving end of imperialism. So to look at a country, say, take Cuba, for example, but you could take the USSR or whatever. These are projects that identified what we are talking about, what the oppressive structure that we are talking about is, and moved to make changes. So I think to be able to look at these projects in the grand scheme of things and not be unfairly critical of them, be understanding of the conditions in which they exist, and take inspiration from that. Don't be nervous to explain that, yeah, I actually do take inspiration from Cuba. I actually do take inspiration from the Palestinian resistance, because these are resilient people who are up against horrific, monstrous crimes. And what are you laughing at right now, bro?
Ilan Pape had this article written about him because he called Hamas fighters brave. And this girl at our university was like, as a Jewish student, Ilan Pape terrifies me because he called Hamas fighters brave.
Yeah. Is it really that bad to say? Like,
here, yes, 100%. You cannot say that. You cannot say. So actually, someone who's a communist on TikTok, like a real theory head, I was like asking him about, you know, the like how we talk about stuff, and he was always like, if someone asks you what you meant theoretically by using the term, I'm going to escalate, you just say, well, I was going to escalate my letter writing campaign. I was going to escalate my my TikTok making campaign.
Yes.
But I actually think what's kind of interesting though about what about what both of you are saying about community organizing and stuff. I don't know if many people have written about this. Perhaps I haven't. But it is interesting how much resistance in the face of Trump did actually work.
Yeah.
Like, you know, ICE was kicked out. And of course, it's because they became so aggressive that for a lot of people, it kind of snaps that this is like, oh my fucking God, you know, they've done this to white people. Because obviously this kind of shit, like the guy who killed, I believe it was Nicole Good, the guy who killed her had previously been Renee Good. Sorry, excuse me. Renee Good.
Renee
had
Nicole
been on
Good.
it.
It's okay.
Renee Nicole Good. That's where I made the mistake.
Yeah.
Or I thought I was worried it was because we've been talking about Nicholas, people called Nicholas earlier.
Probably. There's a thread there. There's a thread.
These are the kind of connections that you make.
Yeah,
but I'm sorry. Like this kind of resistance that so many people are like, oh, you're all a joke. People did stand up, and maybe in part it was because, you know, it was white people being killed because, sorry, what I was going to say is that the man who killed her, I believe, had been on like the equivalent of an ICE SWAT team. And one would wonder, has he done that before? Had he shot someone, you know, an innocent person who happened to not have the correct documentation in their opinion, although they seem to give less and less of a fuck about that. Had he done that before? But still, people did something and they protested and they non-stop harassed ICE officers, and it worked. It made a job that's very attractive for a lot of people because of the amount of money you get for it, the remuneration. It made it complex to do and difficult to do because you saw how much vitriol and hatred towards you there was, and you're not insulated, you know, with hundreds of thousands of dollars every year and guaranteed protection because you're a government official. But it shows you that, like, this kind of like community organization, maybe it doesn't change every single thing instantaneously, but it works. It works.
Of course. Yeah, there was material change, and ICE didn't go away completely, and they're not going to go away completely. But this is another clear example. Like, they were in the airports. They're not in the airports anymore. They were in all of our airports, which is bizarre. They're not there. They were, you know, whatever their reasoning for that may be, or because they got refunded. That was their argumentation. But they wanted to keep them there. They would have if they could have. Like, they want more and more surveillance all the time. Yeah, organizing works. Anybody that tells you otherwise is either an op or they're stupid. Like, it's just not true. I'm sorry. Like, the futility of the average person, like, oh, nothing ever happens. Like, okay. If that's what you want to believe, that's fine, but keep that shit away from me. Like, I don't need that in my life. I don't, you know? I just don't. It doesn't benefit any of us.
They say nothing ever happens, but Cuba's about to attack America with 300 drones, I've heard. According to Axios, my favorite news outlet.
Yay.
They said that. Did you see this? Yes, Axios have reported that Cuba have gained access to 300 drones, and that the US is extremely concerned about an attack on Guantanamo. Well, I mean, gained access to 300 drones. They're pretty cheap and easy to make. I think quite a lot of parts, you need fiber optic cable, which is expensive as shit, but you can get it quite easily. You wire some fiber optic cable and you put on this plastic, you know, thing that can fly with a bit of explosives attached to it, and all of a sudden you blow things up.
Yeah, the weapons of mass destruction. 300.
Yeah. Dude, this is so obvious. This is the most obvious, like, oh, we're gearing up to invade. Like, I don't know, it sounds conspiratorial when you just talk about how, like, the West has done this time and time again. They're just making shit up and then they're using it as a justification. This is a little unrelated, and I guess we're winding down the episode, so I might as well share it.
Okay.
But it's semi-related because it has to do with conspiracies. Are any of you guys seeing on your Instagram reels a supposed, like, tick infestation happening? Like a massive increase? I guess Chris wouldn't because he's not in North America. But are you seeing this, Lily? I keep seeing nonstop that there's a massive influx of ticks and they're carrying all these diseases. And then I went down this rabbit hole because I see these videos. Yeah. I keep seeing these videos. There's the ticks and there's these videos of ticks chasing people. And I'm like, what the fuck?
So chase people.
There was this video, I swear to God, I'll send it to you. This lady was in her car and the tick was like running to her. And there was another video of this guy moving and the tick would correct course and run after him, like trying to find a
Wait, we're talking about ticks, right? Like ticks.
With like diseases and shit. You're not gonna believe this. No, dude. And then I'm looking in the comment section and all I see is like Bill Gates's meme. It's like, I did this. It's like this meme under all these videos.
Yeah.
And they're saying that Bill Gates, hear me out. This is what the thesis is. And I'm not saying I believe this.
I already believe you.
But they're saying that Bill Gates has a private island where he's testing ticks. He's doing tick research and he's trying to increase the tick population because he also has the Lyme disease vaccine that he's waiting to sell. That's the conspiracy. Now, the way they sell this conspiracy to you is they also happen to be like COVID conspiracists as well. So they're like, dude, he already did this exact thing and he did it with COVID. So he's going to do it again. Now, I don't believe that he did that with COVID, but I'm just thinking, if I'm Bill Gates and everybody thinks I created COVID to sell my vaccine and nobody did anything about it, 50% of the population thinks I did that, I'm going to actually do that shit this time because nobody's going to do anything about it.
Good hustle.
Right? So I might actually do that shit with the ticks now because I got away with supposedly starting COVID and selling the cure. Why the fuck would I not do it this time?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that Lyme's disease was created in a lab, right? That's true, isn't it? That Lyme's disease, oh my God, now we're, what is truth? Lyme's disease created in a lab. This is how I do I'm asking ChatGPT. I'm not, to clarify.
I got scared.
The BMJ said, US Pentagon told to investigate, this is the British Medical Journal, is escaped bioweapon from the Cold War.
Well, you know they dropped infected ticks on Cuba, right? Like Operation Mongoose.
Really?
Yeah. That was part of the bioweapon. Yeah. Look it up.
What, with Lyme disease?
I think so. It was some sort of infected... I don't know if it was Lyme disease, actually.
I mean, they've been doing biological
ticks.
warfare since the time of the Native Americans, so... Native people, not Native Americans. Speaking of, I mentioned that earlier, the like craziness of that term. I'm just not going to use that anymore. I think just Native people. I need to talk about them and think about them more often. I really want to get involved with the natives that are still living in these areas. Actually, most of them were unfortunately genocided and massacred around the Chicagoland area, but they still have communities throughout the Midwest.
There's a crazy documentary called Kanasatoke, which is why I remembered it earlier, because Kanasatoke is like a reservation in Quebec. I don't know where it is in Quebec. I think it's northern Quebec. And there's a documentary. It's like 2 hours. It's about when they had a standoff with the Canadian government and the Canadian military, and they've got like and the people look like they're dressed like Hamas. It's crazy. They're like full-on tactical military gear, carrying assault rifles, and they're like, we'll die for the land. Because the local authority politician wants to build a fucking golf course over the indigenous people's land. And it's just like, it's kind of mental because a lot of the settler colonial theorists kind of like disregard this kind of stuff. They're like, America completed its genocide. And it's like, they eliminated the alternative society just by virtue of exterminating indigenous people. But indigenous people do still live and exist across the majority of America, North America, and South America.
My sister's half Native. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, and this is like, this is so much of also what our job is to stop these things in their tracks. Perfect example, the Forgotten War, the Korean War. Blowback has such a good season on this. Blowback season 3, it's amazing. It dispels and it provides so much information. But these things they're forgotten by who? Forgotten by the people who aren't affected by them. Not by the Koreans, both South and North, that's for sure. Not by the Native people who are supposedly all massacred and gone. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Many of them, sadly, are massacred and gone, but a lot of them aren't. Like you said, the same is true with Canada. We don't even know about the Native massacre of the Canadian Indigenous people here in the U.S. Nobody ever talks about that. Literally no one.
I'm Canadian. We barely learn about it here. I had to seek it out myself in high school.
I never learned about Ireland.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know a very limited amount about Ireland, especially because, the IRA were like bombing the UK. The IRA almost killed Margaret Thatcher, and I literally know nothing.
What's their quote? You have to be lucky many times. We only have to be lucky once.
Yeah. They blew up a fucking hotel in Brighton. They carried out like multiple bomb plots here. The British carried out like huge amounts of massacres throughout the Troubles, and the Ra got the British a lot too, know. And that's just kind of excluded. But more importantly, I mean, I don't know if either of you have you ever been to Ireland, Lily?
Not yet. One day.
If you go, I went for the first time last summer. There are still like I kept falling asleep on the bus because I was told to get up at 6:30 every day on the dot, so I could go on these bus rides. But when I'm on a bus and it's warm, I can't help but fall asleep. But anyway, when you look out the window, there are still houses that are like just in disrepair where Irish people fled 200 years ago. It's actually crazy.
It's incredible.
That's still like a part of the landscape in Ireland. You know, something that most people are just like, haha, Irish people ran out of potatoes in the UK. When it's like, nah, they were pretty much intentionally exterminated and starved by the British,
Yeah, so Eagla is Irish. It's not my actual last name. My actual last name is Fears, but Eagla is how you say fear in Irish. And I'm like Irish and British and Polish, right? And
you're not, I thought you spoke, okay, because I've heard you speak Spanish.
Yeah, I know how to speak Spanish, but just because because I lived in LA and I wanted to live in LA my whole life growing up. So I was like, I should probably learn Spanish. Like that's the decent thing to do, you know? I do not speak Polish or Irish. I will one day though, don't worry. But you know, the largest diaspora of the Irish people is here in the United States directly because of the people that fled the famine, which was not a famine. It was purposeful starvation of the population where they had to ship out food, you know, all this. And, it's crazy because there were once Irish Americans, a very large population who were like staunchly pro-unification, whose entire politic was based on Ireland. And because we're so many generations removed from that now, I mean, those families that were, pro the IRA decades ago are now 5th and 6th generation Irish Americans. But yeah, it's so interesting being here and knowing about Ireland and knowing what they've suffered from and hearing that the people that did that to them don't even learn about it in school. I shouldn't be surprised, but it is crazy to think about.
Yeah, we had to watch Roots when we were in school. Do you know what Roots is?
Yes.
We had to watch Roots when we were learning about slavery. It's like, this is a fictional film, and everyone was just obsessed with the scene where they, like, the village elder, like, circumcises all the boys. I remember that being the main topic of discussion. And it's like, why would you show this to a bunch of kids to talk about slavery?
Right. Because then it's not real, that's why. Make it fictional and silly.
On that wonderful note, I guess we're going to have to close up the episode just because of time.
Lily, thank you so much for coming on. It was really fun to talk to you. We'd love to do it again.
We'd love to have you on again. It was a really interesting conversation.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And where can people find you?
Lily Eagla, EAGLA on Instagram. That's
amazing.
where I'm at.
You said you were planning on making YouTube videos, branching out, doing long form content?
Yeah, and Twitch and stuff. I did Twitch for a second back at the beginning of January. It's Lily Eagla on everything. It looks like Eagla. It's Eagla. You can call it.
When you start again, come on my stream or come on my stream at some point. That would be really fun. It'd be lovely to have you on.
I would love that.
Amazing. Thank you to everyone who supports our show on Patreon, with a special thanks to our top tier patrons, Zani, Ashley the Axolotl, Megan Ratana, Storm Daughter, Clara Mayella, Cedar Down Under, Riker G, Jamo, Space, Soph, and Demon Lemon. If you guys want more perks and bonus episodes twice a month, consider becoming a patron. Thanks.